with an opening statement, and then we'll get going with questions.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. I hope all of you are healthy and your families are safe. And again, appreciate you being here. Thought I'd just make a couple of just brief comments. And as Jeff said, definitely, open up for questions. I want to start. I just want to thank Fred Glass. This is the first time I've kind of met with you post July 1. I just want to thank him. He was awesome in the transition. And I couldn't have had a better situation in taking this over, in working so closely with Fred. And he'll continue to be a tremendous advisor and a close friend, obviously. Basically, since I was thinking about this the other day, since I took over, or since actually I was named on March 17th, I've participated in about close to 100 meetings with my fellow ADs in the Big Ten, which, along with Commissioner Warren and several of the Big Ten staff. And to me, that was just interesting as I started thinking back about that. So right after I was named, Fred and I were on the meetings together. And then obviously July 1, since that point, it's just been me. In a typical normal time, the athletic directors meet about 4 times a year. And so I started thinking in 4 months or 4.5 months, I've basically had 25 years worth of meetings with my Big Ten colleagues. And just wanted to mention that because, I hate that we have to meet. I hate that we're in this situation, but it's been extremely beneficial to me. I've been so impressed with the Big Ten, with Commissioner Warren, but with my colleagues, and just the respect that we have for each other, they have, and the collaboration, and just the values of the Big Ten. So that's been a real sort of silver lining, which again, I hate that we have to meet. I just got off a call. It's every morning at 8 o'clock, just hung up. And, that's been a really, really big deal to be in that group and to listen, and gives me confidence moving forward, just being a part of that group. I've said this before. I said this, I think maybe shortly after I took over. Mike Babinski at Purdue, not to single people out, but he's been terrific. We talk regularly, and it just means a lot to have that ability to confide and seek advice and to go back and forth. So he's been terrific. And, an example earlier this week, Josh Whitman from Illinois had texted me and helped me out of a situation. So again, not to belabor that, but I just think, I think that's just a point that I don't think a lot of fans would see, because there's so much intense competition, which we love in the Big Ten, but the respect and the working together is really, really great. I also wanted to mention our medical advisory group. Dr. Larry Rink, Dr. Tom Hismalis, Dr. Andy Hipskin, who's our CMO. I think Fred and I said from the very beginning that we can't eliminate the risk, but we can mitigate it as best as possible by getting the best medical experts around us. And the entire medical team has just been fantastic. But the medical advisory group has really, really been tirelessly working with us to help us through this situation. And I also want to mention our trainers and really the rest of our medical staff. Kind of things just sort of have been on this roller coaster, and the medical staff has just been tremendous and worked tirelessly to help us through this crisis. So I just want to really single them out and how great they've been. Finally, I guess before I open for questions, I think I also just wanted to specifically just thank our coaches, our staff, most importantly, our student athletes, particularly for their patience and their understanding. It's if you ask me what the biggest challenge has been so far, it's just the lack of clarity. It's tough because everybody wants answers. We have so many meetings just like this, Zoom calls, and for me as a leader, you want to provide clarity, you want to provide direction, we want to answer questions, and it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest challenge, is just not being able to take big steps. We have to take baby steps most of the time, but for the most part, I just can't thank enough our staff and our coaches, in particular our student athletes. It's really been it's been gratifying to see how they've reacted, and the openness and the communication we've had in trying to work through this. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
All right, Zach, you go first, and then John Blau, you're on deck.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for the time. I imagine that, in your own internal kind of financial projections are a moving target based on what does and isn't able to happen this fall. But I wanted to ask about something, I guess, a little bit bigger picture. It was reported in the San Jose Mercury News either yesterday or 2 days ago that the Pac-12 is basically trying to prepare a sort of loan program for its athletics departments. I think the story suggested to borrow against future television contract revenues, just to help them cover costs in the event that we do kind of hit the nightmare scenario of lost football revenues, potentially lost men's basketball revenues. Is that something that in different ways, either IU is exploring specifically in terms of possibly looking at some sort of financial assistance like that, or maybe something either the university is exploring with y'all or even the Big Ten?
Yeah, great question, Zach. Right now, all of our conversations that I've had, which are frequent, have been with our university CFO and really working really closely with him. We did that prior to Fred's departure, July 1. Most of you read about the initial phase 1 actions we took in cutting 10% out of our budget. And what we've tried to do, Zach, is really put together all kinds of different contingency plans, and not knowing exactly which way we're going to pivot, but be ready for all different kinds of scenarios. And the partnership on campus and working through everything with our CFO, he's been really, really helpful. So I guess specifically to your question, we haven't gotten into exactly which direction we're going to go or anything outside of the university at this point, but the collaboration with the university has been really, really strong.
All right, go ahead, John.
Yeah, you talked about obviously those financial stresses. I know testing is something you guys are all going to have to do. Having to test athletes, especially in those high-risk sports, twice a week, how much of a financial hit is that going to be for the university on top of the other financial hits that you have in terms of doing that on a daily basis?
Thanks, John. And to be totally candid with you, I haven't really even added it up at this point. It's a really good question, and I don't want you to think that's being irresponsible, but what we've done in terms of any of our expenses related to our COVID preparations, our PPE, our testing, everything, we are doing what we feel is the right thing to do. We're certainly, our internal CFO is tracking on everything, but it's such a fluid situation that I'm not exactly sure where the cost is on that at that point yet. We've got really 2 different avenues that we're working on in terms of testing. We're working in close connection with the university and from their perspective, and some of the gateway surveillance testing that they've acquired through a third party, and then also at the Big Ten level. I think Commissioner Warren, during the announcement yesterday, that conference-wide we're accessing. Hopefully, when we're able to start, that we'll be all using the same testing across the conference as well. But in terms of the exact cost on that, I just don't have that yet.
All right, Mike Merritt and Jeff Rabjohns.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for doing this.
Sure.
What at this point is your biggest story, your biggest concern?
Yeah, for sure. It's health and safety. For sure. Just want to make certain that, as I said when I started out, Mike, that we know we can't eliminate the risk. We know it's not an athletic virus. We know it's everywhere. But to try to make certain that we can mitigate it the best as possible and control what we can control. And the challenge is that I'm extremely confident in everything we've done internally, and I commend everyone that's put together our plans and worked collaboratively with the Big Ten and on our campus. But at the same time, our athletes are here, our student athletes are here, 2 hours a day. And so there's so many things that we can't control. We really work well with them and have a lot of dialogue and making certain that it's a commitment, it's a partnership that we work together on, but we can only do so much on our end here. And certainly a partnership is really important. So yeah, no question, it's just the health and safety and trying to control everything we can control.
Hey, Jeff Rabjohns and Kevin Brockway.
Hey, Scott, good morning.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, it's 2 quick questions. What would you say your confidence level is that football actually does get played? And I know that's sort of a question that, lots of factors can come into play, but is your confidence level right now? And as you guys plan for the future, when do you think college basketball season most likely starts? And what do we know about the contingency plans for basketball?
Yeah, Jeff, I'd say, right now, I thought Commissioner Warren did a terrific job of answering some of those questions yesterday. Extremely hopeful. And I feel like we took a nice step yesterday. But to be honest with you, to be totally candid, I feel like we're day to day. And I feel like, back to what I said, one of our biggest challenges in our communication is providing clarity. And, the key thing for us is that we don't get out ahead of ourselves and that we make certain that we're really deliberate. We're taking everything into account every day, the medical advice, making certain that we're following what's happening in our localities, in our states, across the country, and really just trying to make certain that we've got a plan, we're committed. You saw the schedule yesterday. We're hopeful, but just for me, I'm really thinking almost more day to day as it relates to basketball. I've had lots of long talks with Archie, and by the way, our coaches have just been really great. And you'd think at times that maybe coaches are just chomping at the bit, saying, "Hey, we just got to get this done. We've got to get out there. We've got to make certain we're practicing," or just like you said, Jeff, when are we going to play? And our coaches have really been, "Hey, we've got to do this right. And if it takes more time, it takes more time." And like I said, I've had long talks with Archie about that. And we're talking we started with the fall sports at the Big Ten level, and certainly have talked about basketball, but really haven't gotten to the level we really can I can give you a good feel for where that's going to be. We just need to, again, take baby steps is where we are right now.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure.
All right, Kevin Brockwith and Alex Bozich.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for doing this.
Sure.
How feasible? I know you discussed baby steps, but you also sent out a release yesterday about ticket priority for football. How feasible do you view at this point fans in the stands? Have you explored any contingencies as far as percentage capacity, and what are going to be some of the determining factors between now and September in terms of that being a possibility?
Sure. Thanks. Great question. We've been working on contingency plans for attendance really for months. And in fact, our ticket manager, his name is Mike Osmondson, and he is a numbers cruncher. He's really terrific. And I can't tell you how many different scenarios we've put together. And at one point, we had a discussion, should we go ahead and put something out there? Because again, we want to provide clarity. We want our season ticket holders, our fans to understand and know what our plan is and what we're thinking. But we really took the strategy, which I think was the right way for us to go, was to really take our time. We've got lots of different, I can't tell you how many different plans we have. And what we want to do is really take as much time as we can. We want to wait till the last minute and really base those decisions based on where everything is locally, where we are as a university, where we are as a state, and then release that plan at that point. And I'm confident that we're open to or have contingency plans just about any scenario out there, not only just fans attendance, but just all of our social distancing protocols and how would you serve concession stand food in a social distance situation, and all the different, from tailgating to parking, and there's different scenarios in each one of those. So I'm proud of our staff and all the contingencies we put together. We've worked months on them. Obviously, we're close because you can see where the schedule came out yesterday. But I just feel it's prudent to just wait, because I just wouldn't want to put something out there and then 3 days later something changes and say, well, now it's this. And so hopefully we put it out there, at least for the first few games, it'll be what it'll be. But we'll also say that could change throughout the season as well.
All right, Alex Bozich and then Bob Kravitz.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for taking the time.
Sure, no problem, Alex.
You guys announced the partnership yesterday with Open Doors Ready, and it seems like you guys are kind of trying to get out ahead of that, be proactive. What was kind of behind the thinking of going ahead and announcing that now, and how do you kind of see that partnership, forming and having a positive impact, I guess, on all the student athletes?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. You know, it's a really great point, because one of the things that's been important to me and to us is that, you know, we're spending an enormous amount of time, which we should be, on health and safety and trying to move forward in the environment we're in. But what I didn't want to do for us and our staff, and I've talked about this a lot, is we've got a lot of initiatives. We can't lose sight on moving forward and on what's important to us. And certainly the NIL issue is one of those. And so while we're working on all the COVID preparations and all the health and safety stuff, we really wanted to be a leader in that area. And that was part of one of the things that actually, when I even interviewed for the job, that's just really important. We want to be aggressive in that. So we've really tried to maintain that balance of taking care of the day-to-day, the urgent, but also planning for the future. So the partnership we announced yesterday is just a kind of the beginning, in my view, of something that's just a really critical thing for us that we want to be a leader in. We've formed an internal NIL task force that is made up of several different representatives in our department. Some of our best coaches from a recruiting standpoint, you know, our Mark Cuban Center for Sports Media and Technology, their staff, and we've got a woman named Lene Phillips, who's just awesome, as our social media director, and many of you may know her, and she's been fantastic in this. We're also pulling in we've got some incredible leadership on campus. You know, Dr. Galen Clavio from the School of Media, who many of you may know, who's going to be a part of our task force, and a guy named Dr. Ash Soni from the Kelly School of Business. And so our vision is, with all the resources we have internally in athletics, but also on campus, that and then partnering with an incredible company like Open Doors, I think we can really make some strides and be aggressive in that area, and use this as an advantage for us to give our student athletes an opportunity to maximize their opportunities in this field, or in this area.
All right, Bob, and then Tom Brew.
Hello, Scott.
Hey, Bob.
I have two sort of unrelated questions, so bear with me.
Sure.
The first question is, earlier this year during voluntary workouts, you were forced to shut down for a couple of days because of some positive tests. What are your concerns there moving forward when you have the general student body returning to campus, and, you know, 19-year-olds are going to be 19-year-olds? What can you do to mitigate the virus, and what are your concerns there? And then I have one more question.
Sure. That's a great question, Bob. And that's, you know, as we list our concerns, that's certainly, you know, one of the what I mentioned earlier, you know, control what we can control. And as you said, when we paused football, you know, that was a decision that we felt was the right decision at the time, and based on the recommendation from our medical team. And the biggest concern, and all of our positives to date, have been really from outside of the department. As we go through and try to find the source, they've been from you know, social activity outside of the department. So as you said, when students come to campus, you know, that heightens that concern. What can we control? You know, we can do everything we can do in here and have the best medical protocols and all that. And so that's part of what is so important to us as we work with our student athletes to really educate them. And as I've met with them, we meet with individuals, with teams, with coaches, and you know, they're committed. They want to play for the most part. I mean, there might be a few outliers, but for right now, they want to play, and they understand that this is a partnership. And when they're away from us, they need to make certain that they handle the protocols outside of athletics as well as they do in.
My second question is, Stanford, I believe I'm correct here, they decided to drop several non-revenue producing sports because of their budgetary concerns. Where are you on that? When you look at the bottom line, can you continue to support those non-revenue producing sports during this challenging time?
Yeah, and I definitely saw that, and I would look at that, Bob, as a last resort, and something that you want to avoid at all costs. And you know, we're putting together, you know, be malpractice if I didn't, in working with our university CFO and our internal CFO, trying to put together every projection possible in every scenario. Whether we get a full football season in, we get no football season in, basketball, as Jeff asked about what happens there, and really try to project what will that do for us from a revenue standpoint? And also where will that put us next year? And really, we're trying to look at it, not just in the short term, where are we in the next 3 to 6 months or 12 months, but where do we want to be in 2 years when hopefully we're back to normal? So again, relative to what Stanford did, from our perspective, we want that to be a last resort. But at the same time, we want to make certain we're looking at every contingency plan out there so that we can continue moving forward as a department once we're out of this crisis.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Tom Brew, then Jim Coyle.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Tom.
Since this virus, kind of showed up 4 or 5 months ago, there's been a lot of talk really from Washington on down about how younger kids and younger people have been able to, if they've caught it, have been able to shake it quickly. But with all that went on with Brady Feeney and
Sure.
the seriousness of his illness, I know we can't talk about specifics and such,
Yeah.
but did that set any sort of red flag or alarm for you of what the potential can be if someone gets really sick?
Well, I've always been concerned about the unknowns, always. But one of the things I do know for sure is, and that's back to what I started out with, Tom, is that I'm extremely confident in our medical team. And one of the things that's really, really important is to not just focus on when a student athlete or anyone actually acquires the virus. Once that virus and they're feeling back to normal, for us, it's really critical in analyzing the return to play. And the return to play to me is really critical. And that's kind of to the bigger picture. And our, again, our medical team is I believe, as good as it gets. They're very thorough and cautious in the testing that goes on, the analytics before someone is returned to play. And I think that's really, really important to us. And two is I meet with parents, or obviously talk to our student athletes. The confidence I have is that our medical team is good as it gets, and it's not only just short term. Let's think about how to protect you from acquiring the virus, which we can't guarantee that, which we could. But if you do get it, that you'll get the best treatment possible, not just to get you feeling better short term, but to analyze and do all the testing to make certain that you won't be cleared to play until the doctors give you the thumbs up. And that's what's critical. And that's just got to happen.
All right, Jim Coyle and then Fred.
Scott, thanks a lot for doing this, and congratulations, by the way.
Hey, thanks, Jim.
Thanks. Bob mentioned earlier you had to shut football down for a little bit earlier. Is there a so-called Mendoza line right now that in season that would have to be reached for that to happen in season?
It's a great question, and the short answer is no. There's really not a specific number or percentage or what really would cause a pause. When we paused football, it was definitely the recommendation of our medical advisory group, and it was a combination of factors. And you've probably seen in schools around the country and even across the Big Ten, you've seen different numbers, and every situation is a little different. And as we work through this and moving forward into the season, I think it's one of those situations, and I wish I could give you. It's kind of one of those situations where I wish it would be easy for me to say, "Hey, Jim, it's this," but I honestly believe that I don't feel, from my perspective, the pressure to make that call. I trust completely our medical advice and the medical advisory group, and if they say, for various number of cases, but the close contacts, or it could be because of other factors. I think there's going to be lots of factors that weigh in, but I would trust their judgment and then support them 100%.
All right, Fred.
WLKY in Louisville, the CBS affiliate in Louisville, WLKY.
Okay.
Yesterday, Louisville shut down 4 sports temporarily, 29 positive tests, plus there are other kids in quarantine. This touches on a couple of different questions that you've already had, including Jim. How do you deal with the optics of this? This has been obviously a big debate in the sport. Should we move forward, and how should we be playing at all? There are people outside the sport especially that are looking at this like, this seems short-sighted and all that. How do you approach that with people and with anyone at this point, as well as the Big Ten, trying to move forward in this challenged environment?
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Thanks for being on. For me, it's truly if you honestly feel that you're listening to the best medical advice possible, and our decisions at the Big Ten, and I can tell you because I've again almost been on 100 meetings, and I can tell you our decisions here are based on what our medical experts tell us. And for me, if you have that confidence that you trust the medical advice and you're not going to put anyone in a position that you feel is going to be at a level of risk that the medical experts tell us not to do it, we won't do it. And that's genuine, and that's the way it is. And so I don't feel pressure from other factors. We talked earlier about the financial implications of what may happen, and we'll work through that. But that's I need to in my position as a leader, I need to be ready for that, and for us to be ready for that. But that's not going to factor into the decision. The decision's got to be based on health and safety. And if you believe that and you trust that, then I'm confident that we'll make the right choices moving forward.
All right, Sammy Jacobs, last one.
All right. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
Hey, Sammy, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. I hope
Good.
all is well. With the football, since the football team has been back, how have those workouts gone, and have there been any positives that have resulted from those workouts?
Yeah, and again, I commend our student athletes, not just football, but all of our sports that have been back. It's just a whole new world. And I think when they first came back, wearing masks and the morning checks and all the protocols. And again, I commend our medical staff. We've got 2 people internally from our senior staff that have really headed up the process, Stephen Harper and Becky Panny, and again with Dr. Andy Hipskin, our CMO, putting all those protocols in place. I think when the student athletes came back, I think at first it was an adjustment for sure. It took them back, but after that adjustment period, things become routine, and I'm really again confident in what we're doing here for sure. As far as I know, again, it's hard to completely track everything, but as far as I know, we have not had any positives as a result of anyone working out in here in any spread within the department. And I hate to even say that, I knock on wood, but that's a testament to the protocols, but also to everyone adhering to them, because the protocols are only as good as people adhering to them. So I think it's gone as well as it can be internally, but again, as you saw at Louisville yesterday, and you just never know what happens outside of here. And it's not an athletic virus. It's not something that you can mitigate by just leaving the athletic complex. And so I feel like we're controlling everything we can control. And I think the buy-in's been really good. And like I said, and I just can't emphasize enough the trust I have and the confidence I have in our medical team. Dr. Rink is on the Big Ten Emerging Infectious Disease Task Force at the highest levels. Dr. Rink, his bio is pretty well known. I mean, he was involved on a global level on dealing with the AIDS crisis in athletics. And, I can't tell you how many long conversations I've had with him, just helping walk through how can we do this, and where are we, and are we safe, and do you feel comfortable? And so that's the comfort I have, not to ramble on that, but the comfort I have is really in our medical team. And we're just going to make all our final decisions based on how they feel. And that's just the bottom line.
Okay, thank you guys, and thank you, Scott.
Hey, really appreciate everybody being on the call, and keep in touch and stay safe. And go IU. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.